Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure that we are gathered again and we are going to study a very interesting, important, and highly specialized family, not only in the monocots but among the angiosperms. This family is specialized in terms of its habitat, the alterations and modifications that have taken place in all its vegetative parts, and also the floral architecture that it has raised at such a level that this can be called as the most elastic performance of the evolution. All these things they have gathered and happened because of keeping in front the habit of these plants, the available fauna, that is the world of insects and birds and mammals, and accordingly the plants have modified. And because of that, when we study this family, we are going to study the family Orchidaceae, one of the most expensive family from the economic point of view. The orchids are sold in the Western market at a very high and huge rate. One can't compare and imagine with that of roses. There are n number of thousands of nurseries which are growing and cultivating the orchids in their nurseries, and these plants are available in the market. The flowers are available in the market. Simply because the flowers of Orchidaceae are too beautiful, they are too much beautiful, they are fragrant, and furthermore they are having the highest table life. These plants can, or these flowers can sustain, or they remain as it is for more than at least 1 week. Sometimes even the flowers will remain as it is for more than 15 days. And that's why, as they are having the highest table value, these are available in the market from floricultural point of view. As far as the Orchidaceae is concerned, the number of hybrid orchids which are present in the market, they are almost 3 times higher than the natural species. For example, the single genus Dendrobium, the single genus Cypripedium, the single genus Aries, they are having the hybrid varieties whose hybrid number can be counted in thousands. So each and every one is having its own beauty, its own fragrance, its own nature, its own stable life. And from this purpose, today's family Orchidaceae, is one of the most important family to understand, because it is the highest component of evolution, phylogeny, in monocots. So let's begin with my presentation. Orchidaceae is the second largest family of angiosperms. It's comprising almost 735 genera and over 17,000 natural species which are growing. I'm not talking about the hybrid species. The total number of hybrid species alone, it goes to almost 32,000 hybrids are available in the orchids. The orchids are cosmopolitan, but they are generally abundant in tropics and subtropics, in warmer parts, and usually also found in moist forests. So wherever humidity is high, in such a type of evergreen, semi-evergreen forests, in deciduous forests, but not in dry deciduous forests, in cold grasslands, and as well as in alpine zones, these species are spread widely. As it is known, Orchidaceae is a cosmopolitan family, but there is a difference that in tropical areas like in Asia and Africa, the orchids are having the fragrant flowers. The flowers are having the smell, whereas the genera which are living in temperate region, in colder region, they are not having the fragrance, but they are having a very beautiful color. So there is a regional distinction between these two. As far as India is concerned, we are having almost 128 genera and 885 species. Obviously, there are 3 zones. One zone is Western Ghats. The second zone is obviously Aravalli Parvat or Aravalli mountain range. And the third is nothing but it is the northeast part of the India. That is right from the Sikkim to all the region of Assam and in the forests. On the contrary, 90% of the orchids which are present in India, they are present in Himalaya. Whereas remaining 10%, they are occurring in other parts of India. Furthermore, in Western Ghat, a large number of orchids are present as the terrestrial orchids, where they are having a succulent rhizome and a tuberous root at the base. If at all you go to Himalaya, you will find that a very large number of genera are present where the orchids are present as an epiphytic form. So that is a major difference between the two. In Himalayas, as I told, the orchids are present in the Khashi hills, that is at the foothills of Himalayas, where a tropical rainforest is present. And obviously, as they are having the cold, very beautiful orchids are present here. Whereas in Himalayas, in northeastern part, as I told you, in Sikkim, Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Tripura, and Meghalaya. Let me tell you one thing, in Meghalaya, their state flower is the dendrobium. So it is orchid. In Sikkim, a National Orchid Research Institute is present. And they themselves are having more than 600 genera which have been cultivated in their own nursery. Someone has opened up its mic. Please close down. Please mute your mic. The important genera of this family are Vanda, Habenaria, Cypripedium, Cattleya, Dendrobium, and many more. So many of these names are new to you people, but the orchids are having their own signature tunes and signature names. As far as the plants are concerned, the plants are perennial herbs. Now these plants are perennial because of their either rhizomatous stem or tuberous root. Even sometimes the plants are slow growing plants, and because of that they attain the perennial habit. The plants are either monophytic or polyphytic. That is, some orchids, they produce the flowers only once in its lifetime. They produce the flowers and they die out. Whereas other orchids, they produce the flowers at every season. So orchid remains the same, but the flowers are produced at every season. So the plants are perennial herbs of various habits. They are terrestrial, or they are epiphytic, or they are saprophytic. All these three forms of habit are found in these orchids. Generally, a largest number of orchids are present in the epiphytic form. There are few percentage, almost 10 to 15% orchids, they are present in the terrestrial form or in saprophytic form. The orchids are sympodial. That is, the orchids are having a meristematic axis at the top, and this axis is going to give rise to a tissue which is going to develop into a determinate component. That is, the tissue will develop either into the flower or leaf. The new tissue will generate and it will produce the new leaf. And that's why this development is called the sympodial development. It's a very unique character in this family. Obviously, all the orchids, either they are terrestrial or they are epiphytic, the orchids are succulent and they contain the watery juice. Most of the times, their orchids are glabrous. They do not contain any form of glandular hairs on their surface. Now, the orchids are the tropical orchids, as I told you. Sorry, they are mostly epiphytic, as well as the orchids which are present in the temperate zone, they are generally terrestrial. Now, these are some of the orchids which are present in Western Ghats. Now, this is a Habenaria radiata and this is Habenaria intermedia. Both these orchids are terrestrial. Now, you can see the beauty of the orchids. Particularly in India, the orchids are having generally the white color or yellow color. But if you go to the Himalayan range, you will find a very large range of colors apart from the white. So we will be describing this flower independently later. Now this is a very common hybrid which is present in Maharashtra, and that is Vanda roxburghi. So it is an epiphytic orchid. Now you can see the roots which are aerial and clinging, and they're clinging to the stem and the orchid is growing. Another orchid which is very common with us in Vidarbha is Dendrobium. This is Dendrobium nobile, because it is having the eye spot which is very similar to the buck. Buck म्हणजे राजहंस. तर मी त्या ऑर्किडचा डोळा बघितला तर राजहंसासारखा असं किरमिच असतो. And that's why it's called the nobile. Now this is a Cattleya, which is a very popular orchid which is grown in nurseries. So this is natural orchid which is growing in Sikkim. This is Cattleya labiata, and this is the state flower of Meghalaya. Now there is another orchid which is present with us, and this orchid is obviously an terrestrial orchid, and that is Cymbidium. Now this is Wagsaura. On left side you can see मराठी त्याला वाघचौरा म्हणतात, कारण त्याचं जर तुम्ही फुलं बघितली तर त्या वाघाच्या मिशा असल्यासारखं दिसतं, आणि त्यामुळे त्याला प्लांट आहे वाघचौरा. दिस इज प्लांटेन्थेरा सुझान. Now Susan was a daughter of Gibson. Gibson was a plant botanist, and his daughter identified this plant, and because of the name has been given to this particular species. Now this particular Platanthera is very extensively present in Harishchandragarh. हरिश्चंद्रगडच्या आसपासचा जो परिसर आहे त्या परिसरामध्ये हे ऑर्किड खूप प्रचंड मोठ्या प्रमाणात सापडतं. हरिश्चंद्रगड, त्याच्या शेजारी असणारा वासोटा, त्याच्या पलीकडे असणारा ढाकोबाचा डोंगर, पांढऱ्याचा डोंगर, आंजनेरी, त्यानंतर त्र्यंबकेश्वर या परिसरामध्ये हे ऑर्किड खूप कॉमन आहे. आपल्याकडे हे ऑर्किड तसं कमी पडतं. And this is Aridis, as I told you, odorata, which is having a typical sweet smell. Now let's go ahead and study the family as such. The stem is, if it is aerial, if the plant is epiphytic, the stem is aerial, and if it's terrestrial, obviously it is underground. If the stem is underground, it is in the form of a bulb or a corm. So it is perennial. And every time the new sprout will come up with swollen internodes. So nodes are always swollen, and they are storing the food material. That's why generally the stem is fleshy. and succulent. The roots, they are obviously adventitious because they belong to the monocotyledons. The roots again depend upon the habit of the plant, either they are aerial or in soil. If at all the plant is epiphytic, there are two types of leaves, two types of roots are present. One is aerial roots and another is called the clinging roots. Now, aerial roots, they are generally fleshy and they store food material, and they also develop a specialized tissue which can absorb the water from the atmosphere. That is, they can absorb moisture, and that's why this particular tissue, which is hygroscopic, this is called as a velamen, and that's why these aerial roots are highly specific. Now, below the velamen, there is a specific photosynthetic zone, a cortical tissue, which is green in color, and it performs the function of photosynthesis also. So, aerial roots of orchids is very interesting and important from phylogenetic point of view, because here the roots are performing the function of photosynthesis apart from the natural leaves, while the inner tissue, as I told you, is green and photosynthetic. So this particular roots, they generally produce, or the tuberous roots, they generally produce one pseudo bulb every year. So even though the previous bulb is present, the new bulb is produced every year, and from this, in this new bulb, the food material is stored. And that's why the aerial roots and stem, it is very important. As far as the leaves are concerned, the leaves are extripolate, they are alternate, and they are often distichous. Means the leaves are opposite to each other. They are exactly at 180 degrees. So it looks like the roots are produced in two rows. The leaves are fleshy, they are succulent, they are always linear, or they are ovate with a sheathing leaf base encircling the stem. Remember, the leaves are always sessile. They are never petiolate. They are always having the sheathing leaf base. Now, as far as the leaf number is concerned, generally the leaves number is many. So many leaves are produced, but there are genera which are producing only one leaf or two leaves in their total life cycle. So we can identify the genera and species also depending upon the number of leaves produced. So that's why it's a beauty, and that's why these such a type of leaves, they are called as a monophytic plants. That is, they are producing a single lamella or single leaf within a whole year. The leaves are sessile, as I told you, and they are glabrous. They are dark green in color. As far as the inflorescence is concerned, it is always a raceme or a spike or a panicle. That is, the inflorescence is always a continuous one. The flowers are sessile or they are pedicellate, or the inflorescence may be in the form of branches. That's why it is in panicle. Rarely, that is in Cypripedium, only single flower is produced per stalk. And obviously, the inflorescence is born in axillary position. But again, there are genera and there are species where the inflorescence is produced even at the terminal position. So when the inflorescence is produced at the terminal position, after inflorescence, the plant will die out. Now, we are going ahead with the flower. The flowers are bracteate, even sometimes they are bracteolate. The flowers are trimerous, there are multiples of 3. The flowers are bisexual, they are complete, they are having all the 4 floral parts. The flowers are highly zygomorphic, not only zygomorphic, they are highly zygomorphic. Again, the ovary is inferior, that's why the flowers are epigynous. The flowers are cyclic, that they are having the 4 whorls. The flower themselves are generally pedicellate, that is, they are having the stalk. And there is one more very interesting character, and that character is the flowers will resupinate at 180 degrees at the anthesis. Means the whole flower rotates to 180 degrees, means the upper position, upper part becomes lower part, and the lower part becomes the upper part. flower get twisted along its axis, and that's why it's a very interesting character, that resupination of the orchid flower, and because of that it gets a particular floral architecture so that on the flower the insects can settle down, the insects can land. Obviously the flowers are large and showy. Sometimes the flowers are fragrant, but I have not written here. When we discuss the perianth, it is rather difficult to understand by simple words. Even though I will just read out, the perianth is two-walled, 3 plus tree. The outer wall is 3. It is generally sepaloid, that is either it is green or it is petaloid, it is colored. Now sepaloid outer wall is similar, that is all the sepals are unique, similar, same size. But the inner petaloid, they are free, they are highly zygomorphic, and they are not similar. Out of 3, the 2 lateral tepals, they are alike, they are similar, and they are present in lateral position. Whereas the median tepal, or the third one, it is odd, and that is generally present at the top in the bud condition, but because of the rotation it will come down. That is called as the resupination. And this odd petal, it varies in shape, size and color. So we can have a largest shape, largest size and largest color of this particular tepal, and that's why it's very important. Obviously all these 3, they are of imbricate estimation. That is, one is completely in and one is completely out and other is overlapping. Now it may be in the form of a bulbous condition or bulb, open bulb, or spurred, that is it is having the hairs or tails, or it may be tubular, or it may be variously divided, dissected, and all these variations in this particular tepal, it adds and contributes to the beauty of the flower. And because of that, this modified one is generally called as a lip or labellum. And when resupinate, this labellum stands at an adaxial position, that is lower position. The most important component of the flower is a gynandrium or a central column, and this central column is nothing but it is a highly complex structure formed because of the fusion of stamens. When we talk about the stamens, it means we are talking about the filaments and antherlobes. So it is by the fusion of stamens, style and stigma. So it is similar to the gynandrium which is present in the family Caparidaceae. Here also, I'm not sorry, not Caparidaceae, Asclepiadaceae. And here also we are finding a gynandrium. Now as far as the androecium is concerned, there is only one androecium is present, one stamen. It is fertile, the anthers are sessile, they are dithecous, that they are having the 2 valves, they are interrose present inside, opening inside, and they are opening by longitudinal slits. So there is a vertical slit with which the pollen grains will come out, but in this family there are no pollen grains, but the pollinia are present. That is, the pollen grains are sticky, and the pollen grains are produced in large number of sticky masses, which is called as a pollinia. The individual antherlobes, they are adnate to the gynandrium. The pollen grains are sticky, mealy, that is very similar to the flow, or they are waxy, as in pollinia. Generally, 2 to 8 pollinia are produced per anther. So it is not only one pollinia is produced, but number of pollinia are more. And these are either free or they are loosely attached, so that they can directly get attached to the body of the insect, and they further go or they are dispersed for the pollination purpose. The staminodes, they are present sometimes because of sterile structures which are modified to help out the design and designation of the central gynandrium. As far as the gynoecium is concerned, the ovary is tricarpellary syncarpus. So obviously it is tricarpellary and inferior ovary. It is fused. It is unilocular with the having 3 partitions. So it is 3-partite with many ovules which are present, which are situated, and they are situated or they are placed on the parietal placenta. So the ovules are many in 3-chambered locules and produced in axial placentation. The style is single and the stigma is trifid, but both style and stigma, they are modified to form a special structure which is very similar to that of a flower of Papilionaceae, and the structure is called as a rostellum. Now rostellum word has come from a cock. आपला कोंबडा माहिती आहे, त्या कोंबड्यात तुरा असतो आणि त्या कोंबड्याच्या तुऱ्याला रोस्टिलम म्हणतात. त्याच पद्धतीने या फुलामध्ये पण जो तुरा तयार होतो of the reproductive organ, that is called as a rostellum. The style and stigma, they are fused with the filaments to form a complex structure. Obviously, we have discussed this, and that is called as a gynandrium. Now, these plants, they are fertile, bisexual, and so they are producing the fruit, which is generally a capsule. And the flowers are open, the fruits are opening up when they become dry, and they open into 3 to 6 halves or sectors, segments, and they hang in air. The seeds are very light, and the seeds are aerolate, they float in the air, and because of that, the seeds are carried away with the current of air, and the seeds, they get landed on the crevices on the bark. याच्या बिया असतात, या बियांना पंख असतात, कित्येक वेळा बिया लाईट असतात किंवा चपटे असतात आणि काही वेळा चिकट पण असतात आणि त्या हवेच्या झोतावरती व्हायला लागतात आणि ज्या ज्या ठिकाणी झाडांची खोडं आढळतील त्याच्यावर ते चिकटतात आणि ज्या ठिकाणी चिकटतील तिथून त्या जर्मिनेट होतात आणि तिथून नवीन पडणं सुरू होतं. Because of that, the pollination is highly specialized and it is entomophilous. The insects, the dispersal, obviously dispersal of fruits and seeds, but here it is true for the seeds only, that the dispersal of seeds is by wind. As the seeds are winged or they are very much light in weight, and because of that, the seeds are carried away for a large distance. Now, I have taken one diagram to understand the flower. You can see this flower. What you see at the base, this is lobulum, where actually the insects are landing. Actually, the flower is twisting out. So, at the beginning, this rostellum is this particular labellum or lip. It is present at the top. But when the flower opens, if the flower hole turns out, and this lip will come down, and it becomes or it provides a sheet on which the insect settles. So you can see the two lateral wings on either side. So these lateral wings, they are nothing but the two lateral carpels, and in this way the total perianth is completed. Now outside this you can see the white colored sepaloid perianth or the sepals which are present in the white color form. The important structure you can see is at the center. So this is what is called as a gynandrium. It is having the anther cup, then it is having the style and stigma which are fused together, and then below that again there is a specific structure which is called as a rostellum cup. In this rostellum cup actually the nectaries are present, and to get the nectaries the insect tries to go inside the flower. When it tries to enter, automatically you can see the pollen mass which is present on the top. Automatically the pollen mass gets attached to the body of the insect, and when the same insect goes to the other plant or other flower, it will try to give out this pollinia to make the entomophilous pollination or cross pollination successful. So in this way, this is a very highly specialized floral architecture which is required, which is seen in the family Orchidaceae. Now, because of this highly specialized structure, because of its highly specialized mechanism of the pollination, and because of the modification of leaves, stem, and root to perform each other's functions. So the leaves are also thick, so they can store the food material. The stem is green, so that it can go for the photosynthesis. Even the stem is succulent, and so that it can retain the moisture and food material. Even the roots are photosynthetic. And obviously, because of that, the roots can absorb photosynthesis, they can perform this function of photosynthesis, and even the roots are having the hygroscopic tissue, which is called the velamen, so that they cannot absorb the water, but they can absorb the moisture also from the atmosphere. And that's why the plants can remain throughout the year in the epiphytic condition. And because of that, this is the uniqueness of this family Orchidaceae. Now, this is a sort of a diagram, a sketch of Vanda. On the left side corner, you can see the flower, where you can see the three sepals which are present, obviously crossing each other. And then alternate to sepals, you can see the three taper lobes. The two are lateral, which are similar, and the third one, which is at the lower side, it is showing the highest modification. So this is a leaf or labellum, and this is a diagram of a typical orchid plant. So with this, we go for the last component of systematic position. So as the seeds are very minute in size and they are very lightweight, even though this particular family is having the inferior ovary, this family has been placed into microspermy. Sperm means seeds. So as this plant is producing hundreds of seeds and which are very small in size, because of that it has been placed in microspermy series, and the family is Orchidaceae. So this is a very interesting family from the morphological point of view, from functional point of view, from ecological point of view, from physiological point of view, even for the genetic point of view, and from economic point of view. So this family is highly used for horticultural purposes in India and abroad. On the contrary, the highest market, more than 40% of the market of the floral world is captured only by the orchids all over the world. Also, it is producing the large amount of diversified fragrant smells, and because of that, the orchids are also very valuable, and they are cultivated even in in-house gardens. Orchids are cultivated in in-house gardens, and that's why the orchids are very important. Again, as far as the orchids are concerned, they are having a very complex mechanism of reproduction, but at the same time, even they can propagate it, or they can be propagated by the underground stem and root. And because of that, the orchids are cultivated on a very large scale in nurseries. So the orchids are produced in the nurseries, they are hybridized, and such type of large number of hybrid orchids is available in the market. Particularly in all European countries, in America, in Japan, the orchids are much more famous than the roses. Now, dear friends, with this discussion, we are completing the family Orchidaceae. It seems that we have studied the family, the families from the dicots. In polypetalae, we have studied the family Magnoliaceae, the family Caparidaceae, the family Rhamnaceae, the family Leguminosae, which is having the three subfamilies, Papilionaceae, Cisalpinaceae, and Mimosaceae. So all these families, they were from the polypetalae. We have studied the four families from the Gamopetalae. One family was Asteraceae, the Apocyraceae, the Lamiaceae, and Acanthaceae. We have studied one family from the Monoclamidae or Apetalae, and that was the family Nyctagenaceae. And lastly, we have studied two families. The one family was obviously a small monogenetic family, that is family Canaceae, which we have studied yesterday. And the second family, today we have studied, and that is the family Orchidaceae. Now remember, among these 14 families, 4 families are having cosmopolitan nature, and obviously they are having the largest number of genera. And they stand in their ranking. First, for example, the highest rank is acquired by the Asteraceae members as well as by the Orchidaceae members. This is followed by the Fabaceae family. It is followed by the Lamiaceae family, and lastly, it is also followed by the Acanthaceae family. So, likewise, if at all we study the top 10 families, several families are belonging towards the cosmopolitan nature. Now, the ovary may be superior to inferior. The floral arrangement may be of a free or a variant and corolla type. All these families, they do possess the economic importance. I have deliberately kept aside two components which now I wish to give you as a home assignment. First of all, write down the distinguishing characters of each family. Write down the systematic position of each family. Write down the type, genus and species of each family. That is, write down one genus which is common and which is showing all these characters. Then draw a sketch of the twig and flower so that it becomes a representation, and draw the floral diagram and floral formula. Now, almost 80% of the components already I have given you in the form of slides. So what we are supposed to collect is the information about the economic importance of the flowering plants. So you have to go ahead and you have to study the economic importance, and you have to write down the economic importance of each and every family. In the next week, on Saturday, you are supposed to submit all these details to Patilman in online mode, not in offline mode. And so, when you will be submitting this, I am going to assess them, and that will be your first home assignment. So, the economic importance, distinguishing characters, the floral diagram and floral sketch, floral formula and floral diagram, and the economic importance as I told you. So, these are the components you have to cover for all these families. Dear friends, we started our discussion with a component, origin of angiosperms. In origin of angiosperms, we started our discussion with the origin, the probable time of origin, probable place of origin, and probable ancestors of origin. As far as the probable ancestors are concerned, we studied only three groups which are most significant. One was the nuttials, the another was benitatials, and the third one was obviously the pteridosperms. After that, we have studied extensively the plant classification. We have studied what is meant by natural classification, artificial classification, and phylogenetic classification. We have gone for the overview of Linnaeus classification system, Bentham and Hooker's classification system, and ultimately at the end, we have studied about the England Prandtl system of classification. We have studied the Hutchinson system of classification in detail, and then we have gone ahead with the discussion of the last component, and that is the APG classification system. That is angiosperm phylogenetic group classification system. And for the sake of convenience, even though APG4 has come to the market and which has come to the doors of the footsteps of the researchers, we are establishing our details to APG3 classification system, which was proposed in 2009. And after that, actually, we have gone ahead with studying the families now. And accordingly, as I told you, we have studied 14 families, right from the Magnoliaceae to, obviously, the last family is Orchidaceae. Obviously, as far as the records are concerned, the most primitive family is considered to be the Magnoliaceae, and the most advanced family is considered to be the Asteraceae on one side and Lamiaceae on other. As far as the monocots are concerned, that way both the families belong to the advanced group of monocots. But that too also, the Orchidaceae is a highly advanced and complicated family, most established family, among the monocots, which is available at the highest regime of the evolution and phylogeny. So with this, let us conclude our paper. I thank all of you for being patient, for being with me all the time, listening to me very keenly, carefully, and obviously studying at home through the notes which were provided to you. And only a very small chapter is remaining concerned with the endemism, and this endemism will be covered by Dr. Patil ma'am. Whereas this is my last lecture, I'm going to close now. I'm going to stop now. I'm expecting your valuable feedback as far as the whole syllabus is concerned or the whole course paper is concerned. So I'll be happy to receive the feedback from all of you. Definitely the notes will be provided to you in due time by the Patil ma'am. And if at all there are any queries, now you can mail the queries to me. I will reply. You can WhatsApp me, or you can put the questions on the social media so that it will be possible for me to answer. Remember, all this information, all this knowledge is available with me, and that's why you can ask me any question, any query at any time, at any place. You're most welcome. Taxonomy is one of the most interesting component or interesting part in botany, and that too, the angiosperms are highly specialized. And so the journey with the origin of angiosperms, classification of angiosperms, and taking a survey of the flora of present angiosperms, it was very a joyful journey, a very happy journey with all of you. I stop here. Wish you all the best. Have a great time. Study well, stay safe, and perform well in evaluation. All the best. Thank you. I'm closing the PPT, and I open